Good morning, evening, afternoon to everybody who has followed this channel, who follows this channel. Today is apologetical Saturday, and I will respond in English. Hoy sábado apologético responderé en inglés algunos comentarios que he visto por protestantes en el YouTube. Oftentimes, as I'm doom scrolling. Yes, doom scrolling is a bad habit that I have. I would admit to that. I will occasionally find videos by Protestants who have so poorly presented their information that they're 100% wrong. Some of them answers with such ignorance into what they're saying that, well, so in the sense of charity, I do respond trying to correct some misconceptions that they have. But I've had some interesting responses. Some of them well-intentioned, some of them not so well-intentioned, but many of them full of mistakes. Some of these mistakes are so big, such big mistakes that instead of requiring a regular typewritten response, a video is better. So I promise some of them that I would be uploading this video. It's going to be regarding the comments received over the past week, over the past 5 days, and I will be responding to each of those comments, signaling, pointing out to their mistakes. I don't have anything to hide, so for this reason, I'm going to share my my computer screen as into what I have, the messages I have received. So here we go. One video that was mentioned spoke about unicorns. You see, a lot of people, thanks to Protestant doctrine, a lot of people have come to attack Christianity as a fantasy. Yes, you heard me right. The King James Version does not teach authentic Christianity, and it has become the cause why Christianity is mocked by many in today's world. It has several major mistranslations. Translating presbyter for elder, for example, is one of them. But in this case, one of the verses translate in the King James Version talks about a unicorn. And so a lot of people say that because of the unicorn, therefore it would be a fantasy. However, I commented on that and put it out that only a Protestant Bible says unicorn. Catholic Bibles do not have the word unicorn in them. And I pointed out that the King James Version is not the real Bible, that the King James Version is a decomposed, corrupted translation of the Bible. I pointed that out. And I shall make, maybe 2 weeks from now, I shall upload a video explaining why the King James Version is the worst possible translation you could go on. This is one example, though, that I commented on when I mentioned the only Bible that mentions unicorns is the King James Bible. The King James is not a true Bible. It is twisted and misrepresented to satisfy the political aims of the Protestant Church. The original Bible has never said unicorn. Now, let's do what I was responded with, what they responded with to this response, to what I mentioned. Okay, I'm trying to find the sequence. Okay, they mentioned this comment. Okay, let's look at the full comment. The comment falls apart pretty quickly once you actually look at the text and history. Yes, precisely because I know the text itself and the history of how the Bible came to be and how the King James Bible came to be. That's the reason why I make this comment. If you really know the fact, the comment I make does not fall apart. it is strengthened. First, the KJV didn't invent unicorn. It is translated an existing Hebrew word, reem. The real translation is a KJV wrong. What does reem mean? Second, other translations absolutely reflect the same animal. False. Reem is not the word for unicorn. So once again, this person trying to defend the King James Bible actually proves himself wrong, and trying to argue against me, he ended up proving my point right. Didn't even the King James Bible, the King James Version didn't invent the word unicorn, but it applied the word unicorn to the Bible, where there is no reference to any unicorn whatsoever. The word reem in Hebrew, he has it right here, a wild ox. So now this guy here trying to argue against me, trying to defend the King James Version, when I pointed out that the King James Version is translated wrong, now he points out that it means a wild ox. Yes, reem means a wild ox, not unicorn. So this guy has tried to defend the King James Version, and instead of contradicting me, he came here trying to correct me, and instead he ended up pointing out and proving that I am right in everything that I have mentioned so far. When you're in a hole, stop digging. This guy's making precisely the point I made. Reem is not a unicorn. It is a wild ox. I've said it from the very beginning. And now this guy is trying to defend the King James mistakes by using other versions of the Bible that prove me right. Latin Vulgate 400 AD, long before Protestantism, unicornis. Wrong. Let's see what the Latin Vulgate actually says. If you read the Latin Vulgate, it does not say unicornis. So this guy is lying. Let me see if I can look it up so we can actually read it. Let's see. Let's type up Bible mention a unicorn. Numbers 23:22. Let's find Numbers 23:22, and let's look for it in the actual Latin Vulgate. Now, let's see what the Vulgate says here. So now we see that this Protestant is trying to say, oh, the Latin Vulgate, because I made the point that the Catholic Bible is the correct Bible, not the Protestant Bible. And this guy ended up trying to rebuttal me, saying that the Latin Vulgate says unicornis. Let's see what the Latin Vulgate actually says. If we go ahead and Google Numbers 23:22 from the Latin Vulgate, what does it read? Deus educit illum de aegitu, cuius fortitudo similis est rhinocerotis. Rhinocerotis, not unicornis. So therefore, this guy is made out to be the liar, because the Vulgate Bible does not say unicornis. So we have this Protestant who tried to prove his point and tried to defend the King James Version's lies and serious mistakes in translating, translating the word unicorn where there is none. And now he comes saying, well, the Vulgate Bible says unicornis. No, we just went into the Latin Vulgate and we saw that it doesn't say unicornis. It says rhinocerotis. So right here, we have made this person, the so-called Brother Todd Camp, we just made him out to be like the liar that he is. You see, a Protestant will usually make claims in general, hoping that they stick. They don't expect a Catholic to actually look deep into this? Well, he has met a Catholic that does look way into the origins of stuff. And therefore, I have proven him to be a liar because the Latin Vulgate does not say unicornis, it says rhinocerotis. Monokeros, Greek Septuagint. Okay, let's look at the Greek Septuagint. For the Septuagint, yes, let's look at the Septuagint. Let me see here. Where did I look for that? Where did I leave that comment? Okay, here we go. Let's go and look for it in the Septuagint. The Greek Septuagint, let's look at what it says. Bear with me. Let's exit the screen and go to what it will actually say in the Greek Septuagint. And we find that in the Greek Septuagint, it says, Theos exagagon αυτούς ex Aegyptu os toxan monokerotos αυτού. Well, right here, he is right. It does say monokerotos. But the word monokerotos is a word. Okay, let's ask now, what animal is the monokerotos? Because they're okay. Well, it turns out that the monokeros is a legendary animal with only one horn related to a unicorn. Okay, right here. Interesting that but you know what is interesting about this and what is the response to this? This may appear to prove him right, but we already proved him wrong when we saw the Vulgate. But although it appears here that it may talk about what appears to be a unicorn, but they're talking about the monokeros is a medieval animal. So let's look here. They're actually taking an ancient Greek word and using a medieval definition for an animal, for a word that was used in the Middle East 2,200 years ago. So that the definitions of medieval animals cannot be applied. Okay, the definitions of animals believed in medieval Europe cannot justify the definition of a word applied in the Septuagint Bible of the Middle East of 3,200 years ago. So obviously it's referring to different things here. But now let's look at what the word is actually in the what. Sorry about that, a little technical problem. Let's look at what is the actual word that shows up in the original Greek. I mean, in the original Hebrew writing right here. So now let's go for this. We're going to go to BibleHub.com. When I want to look at the meaning of the original words, I go to BibleHub.com. And I do not limit myself to what the actual explanation is given by the person there. I actually read the text for myself, and then, if necessary, I will look at definitions. We're looking at the Hebrew of Numbers 22, and I think it's, do I remember correctly? We said that it's 32. Numbers 22, 32. ויאמר אליו מלאך יהווה על מה הכית את אתונך הזה שלוש רגליים הנה אנוכי. Okay, that number 22, 32. What was the actual text we saw? Let's see. It was Numbers 23, 22. My mistake. 23, 22. Let's go to Numbers 23, 22 then. 23, verse 22. And it reads in Hebrew, El Motzraim mimatzraim ketoafot rim lo. The actual word is rim. Rim is the actual word we see in the original Hebrew manuscript. And rim, as we can see here, refers to a wild ox, not a unicorn. So we see then that King James, when it says a unicorn, they have translated it wrong. It does not even give any reference to a one-horned creature. The Septuagint translates it as a monokeros, because when the Bible was translated from Hebrew into Greek, there were certain terms that Greek-speaking people had lost familiarity with certain words in biblical Hebrew. In biblical Hebrew, rim is a wild ox, not even one horn, two horns. So anybody who tells you that the Bible talks about a unicorn, they're not looking at the real Bible. They're looking at the twisted and corrupted King James Version. Now, let's go back to see what this person continues saying. Let's see. Where were we? Right here, right? I believe so. Let's see what else he said. So no, this is in some Protestant conspiracy. The idea of a one-horned powerful beast tied to those passages existed over 1,000 years before the King James Version. He's going back to the monokeros, the use of monokeros, which, as I just explained, the word monokeros, to use it as a unicorn or a one-horned being, is you taking medieval fantasy and applying it to a term that was used 1,200 years ago, 1,200 years ago. I mean, actually, 2,200 years ago. So no, this argument fails if you take into account what's called literary criticism, textual criticism. You see, when you study the Bible properly, it's not just enough to read it and say, oh, it says this. You need to take into account what's called textual criticism. Is this phrase that I'm looking at proper of the time frame in which this document was written, or does it seem altered afterwards? That is a key right there. The unicorn, the monokeros, is a medieval European concept. Therefore, it was used afterwards. So it does not apply. And yes, any and all changes in the King James Version are a conspiracy theory. The idea of one horn, okay, we already talked about that. Third, the Bible describes this animal in ways that rule out fantasy creature and point it to a real powerful, untamable animal. Oh, yes? Really? So then why is it using the terminology that did not exist until the medieval ages to describe a fantasy creature instead of the original one? The original meaning is not a one-horned creature, it is a wild ox. Yes, and wild ox was seen as untamable, hence wild, untamed ox. Ox have always been a symbol of strength. That in this part, you're right. It's talking about a powerful force that has not been tamed. That much you are correct. There's no agreement in that. Reem is a wild ox. An ox is a symbol of power, a symbol of strength. That is why the Hebrew letter Aleph, the beginning of all the alphabet, is represented by an ox to represent the power behind the given word of God. But the word reem is talking about a very powerful ox that has not been tamed. That much you are right. But the question here that I pointed out is that the word unicorn does not apply. The word unicorn is a twisted misrepresentation done by Protestants in their fake King James Version. That's the argument that I made. I never questioned whether reem referred to a powerful animal or not. Let's continue. With the reem being willing to serve, the reem, not the unicorn, the wild ox, with the wild ox being willing to serve, he had it as with the strength of a reem, the strength of a wild ox, not the strength of a unicorn. I'm glad that this guy is actually applying the verses here correctly this time. Let's see. That's not a magical horse. That's something strong, dangerous, and really exactly how the ancient people describe animals and aurochs, extinct wild dogs, or even creatures they categorized as one-horned, like the rhinoceros. Very interesting how this person keeps contradicting himself. I made the point that the Bible does not talk about unicorns. It's talking about real animals. The Bible does not base itself in fantasy, in European medieval fiction. And then we have this guy here coming around, stating the facts about how the reem refers to a wild ox. Then he turns around and goes back to defend such terrible translations as the King James. That's not a magical horse. Then explain to me, what is a unicorn? A reem is not a unicorn. A reem has no reference to a single horned creature the way this guy is trying to say. You're pointing out about classification is solid. Early naming systems and even Latin species names, unicornis, show that a unicorn simply meant one-horned animal, not a glittering fairy tale horse. The modern fantasy image came much later. Thank you. But guess what? Reem does not have any reference to a one-horned creature. Anything that has a number one, and Hebrew is very based and it has a very specific radical system when it comes to writing. If it would have had anything to do with the number one, it would have an aleph, a he, and a dalet. These are the three letters that when combined would mean one. You don't find that combination here. It's only talking about a reem, which is a powerful, untamed creature. No reference to any animal that has one horn. So, therefore, any interpretation of the Bible where it talks about this creature being one horn is wrong. The claim of the original Bible never say unicorn. That's my point. The Bible doesn't say unicorn. It's just wrong, the underline. But the Bible claimed that the original Bible never said unicorn. It's just wrong. You see, there he is trying to defend the word unicorn again. And we just pointed out that the reem is not unicorn. You will never find in Hebrew anything that would be remotely translated as unicorn. Because a unicorn is a pagan, European, medieval invention. A unicorn is something that was invented by European pagans in the medieval ages. So there would be no reference to any single horned animal at any moment in Hebrew literature. Therefore, his argument, he comes over here, very interesting, trying to defend himself, proving my point. Then he goes around, contradicts himself. Oh, a unicorn's not a magical animal, just a wild dogs and a powerful and tame animal. Yes. But the word unicorn, no, sir. The moment you start talking about the Bible, talking about a one-horned animal, you have gone wrong. Let's continue saying. The underlying word in ancient and multiple pre-KJV sources already interpreted in one as one-horned creature. No. Only the King James Version and some later forms of the Septuagint. There's just one Septuagint. There were several different forms. When you talk about Old Testament Septuagint manuscripts, even if you're talking about the Septuagint, you have, for example, Codex Vaticanus, Codex Sinaiticus, different documents, and only the later one says monokeros, not the original one. So this guy is clearly trying to defend the lie about a unicorn, even though he had already clearly stated it's not about a unicorn. Then I tried to prove a point that he does not know his enough Hebrew to interpret it properly. So I answered, Amilo Hoshev. That was a mistake. That meme should have been a noon. Anilo Hoshev Shata Yodea is my Ata Medaber al Hashicha Hazot. In Hebrew, that simply means, I don't think you know what you're talking about in this conversation. And his answer saying, what call? There is no point in there, no word there referring to a call. And I pointed out, I did not say about a call. I was talking about a video I will prepare within a week to refute your false claims. And this is that video. You said this 10 hours ago. What does he claim that I said? I mean, okay, he's making a reference to what I posted. And it's clear, and my mother didn't think you knew who you were talking to on this call. No, totally mistranslated. The only thing you got right was my mistake when I wrote Ami, wanting to write Ani. And there's no, dude, Ani lo Hoshev, I don't think. Shata Yodea, like you don't know, is me. Okay, that was another typo. You should have said es ma, which would be what. Ata medaver, you are speaking about. No, and notice al has an ain lamed, which means about, not to. And a ka would have been kera. There's no word kera here. So no, he used Google Translate. No, not even Google Translate, because even Google Translate does a better job translating than this. I see you went to Google to translate the Hebrew because your grammar is not totally correct. Mi haya more ha'ivrit shelcha. Efor lamat ivrit ve'lama. I'm trying to test him in his Hebrew. I'm trying to make a point. The point I'm trying to make, I'm not trying to prove him. I'm not trying to humiliate him. I'm trying to measure how much Hebrew he actually knows. As it turns out, the translation, not even the translation service he used is correct. Right here, I asked him, who was your Hebrew teacher? Where did you learn Hebrew and why? Because of his mistakes, I answered, it is not call, it is shiha, which means conversation. This proves you don't know Hebrew as you claim. The reason why I'm pointing that out, remember that he has tried to use the Hebrew word reem to justify a unicorn. So I'm trying to prove here that he does not know how to speak Hebrew to be able to defend such an absurd concept. Then he says, yes, I'm sorry, but I don't speak Hebrew, only English and Spanish. Okay, I rest my case. You don't speak Hebrew. So then why are you going to try and use the words of a language you don't even know to try and defend the lies of a twisted and corrupted version of the Bible as a King James? Sir, if you don't know, stop arguing. There's a very powerful text that says in Hosea chapter 4, verse 6, my people are lost because of their ignorance. Because of your ignorance. You're over here trying to sound like a very smart person. You uploaded this video, Brother Todd Camp. You speak in the video as if you had all this knowledge. But when you're pressed to prove your knowledge, we find that you're just shooting blanks. You're just shooting blanks. Nothing but what your pastor tells you. I seriously, no wonder you keep telling us that Vulgate says unicornis, and we prove that the Vulgate does not say unicornis. Because you are only repeating the lies that your pastor has told you. And in this video, I have proven that your pastor who told you about unicornis is a liar. He has never picked up the Vulgate and looked at it. And neither have you. Furthermore, the way you are contradicting yourself only proves my point. You have tried to argue against my point, but instead, you have been making my case for me, proving that I am right. And then after you prove that I am right, you go back and continue insisting on that, one-horned animal. You keep insisting about a ring, talking about a one-horned animal. And yet we now proved you don't even know Hebrew. The word rim has no reference to having just one horn. It's just a wild ox, period. So you admit you do not know Hebrew, and therefore you prove that everything you say about the so-called unicorn and your translation of rim is wrong. And then I say, so you admit that you do not know Hebrew. You have been made out as a lying Protestant pastor that you are. You have proven that Protestantism is based on ignorance, and you have demonstrated that your translation, Rim, is not based on actual Hebrew. Therefore, once again, the truth comes out. The King James Bible is a forgery. For your information, everybody who knows biblical Hebrew knows the Rim actually translates as a wild ox, not as a unicorn. He comes out saying, we're in the 21st century. They have things called books. If you want to know what something says in Hebrew, you can look it up in Strong's Hebrew Dictionary and Concordance. Guess what, guy? Been there, done that. As I just proved in parts of this video earlier, if I want to look at the actual documents, I actually go to BibleHub.com, where I can see the Hebrew or the Greek myself right there. Thank you very much. Tell me something that you don't know. Then I said, oops, I forgot. You are a Protestant. If you had more knowledge, you would not be Protestant. You would be Catholic. And once again, we go back to the original mention that I made, where I talk about preparing this video. Then we go on to another serious mistake that he talks about, where he says, and the theme about the original Bible having 72 books doesn't hold up either. You're right, because the original Bible does not have 72. It has 73. Thank you. Your ignorance proved you wrong once again, because you thought it was 72. No, it's 73. And yes, the original, the first commonly agreed to canon of the Bible, which was formed in the Senate of Rome of 382 under the supervision of Pope Damasus I, the canon was agreed to be the full 73 books, including the Septuagint, which you even tried to appeal to, but you're not rejecting. How is that? There was no single bound original Bible. Correct. You're correct. The first 382 years, there was no originally bound Bible. That is correct. Where did the first original Bible come from? I just explained it. Senate of Rome 382, which was 73 books. So quite interestingly, you just make your case against Protestantism. Don't the Protestants believe sola scriptura? I only believe what's in the Bible. Oh, I don't believe what a pastor says if it's not in the Bible. So if there was no Bible, as this guy correctly said, where did they get all this information? Where did the church get all this information? Oh yeah, from their preachers, from the presbyters, from the priests. And you are right. And this proves that the early church was not a Protestant church, because Protestant churches believe in sola scriptura. If it's not in the Bible, I don't believe it. So that would have been 382 years without believing anything. How foolish is that? But now you just made a point right here where you talk about there not being any officially Bible for the first 300 to 400 years, which actually proves then that the Catholic Church is correct. And guess what Bible you're talking about when you're finally talking about the first canon of the Bible? The Latin Vulgate, a Catholic Bible. You're talking about long before anything a Protestant versus Catholic divide. Yes. Back when the only church that existed, where the only form of Christianity was Catholicism. Back when there was no twisted King James Version. Guess what? It was the Catholic Church. You're right. There's no Protestant divide because the Protestants didn't come back until 1,500 years later. There was no King James Version until 16 centuries later. Moratorium fragment shows most of the New Testament already in use. Athanasius' Easter letter lists exactly 27 books used today. Council of Hippo 393, Carthage 397 affirm these same books. Correct. Nobody is arguing the existence of the 27 books of the New Testament. All Protestants, and this is the one thing that Protestant and Catholic Bibles have in common. Protestant and Catholic Bibles, we all agree on the same 27 books of the New Testament. Where the Protestants are wrong is in the Old Testament. And if we take the time to look at Eusebius of Caesarea, one of the early church historians, he will tell us in his document known as Ecclesiastical History, on more than a couple of times, where he tells us that the Old Testament was agreed to be the full 46 books. Now you take this 46 plus the 27, that gives you 73 books, which you are denying. Quite interesting enough, Eusebius of Caesarea tells us that any books that were not agreed upon were the ones in the New Testament. It was the book of Revelation, the book of 2nd John, the book of 3rd John, 2nd Peter, Jude, the letter to the Hebrews, and the letter of James. Those are the 7 books that were not agreed upon. And only because Saint Damasus, Pope Damasus ordered it so, was it that they became part of the Bible. If it wasn't because of the papal decree pronounced by Damasus in the Council of Rome of 382, there would only be 20 books in the New Testament. The only reason why there are 27 books in the New Testament is because Damasus commanded it so. That's over 1,001 years before Protestant Reformation. Yes, you just made the point for the Catholic Bible. There was no Protestant church. The only Bible was the Catholic Bible. And the Catholic Bible has 73 books. So you try to make a claim and attack the validity of the Catholic Bible by saying there was no division between Catholic and Protestant, this and that. You just proved that there was no Protestant church, that there was only the Catholic Church. Heck, maybe I should let you go on and argue, because you're making all the points that I'm making, proving that the Catholic Church is the one and correct Bible, that the Catholic Church is the one and correct church. Council of Nicaea 325 didn't decide the Bible canon at all. That's correct. And that's a popular myth. It dealt with the nature of Christ. There are controversy. Yes, you do know some of your history. I will grant you that. The Hebrew Jewish canon long before Jesus' time did not include those extra books. You are wrong right there. This is where you are wrong. The Hebrew Jewish canon in the time of Jesus was known as the Septuagint. And yes, the Septuagint included, let's look at the canon of the Septuagint. Let's look at this information. And once again, you're going to be made out to look like a fool. You start saying some facts, then you throw in some lies. You start out making yourself like an expert. Oh, I know all about this. But then you throw some false information. Let's look at, I want you to go with me, and we're going to Google here what the Septuagint canon held. What books were in the Septuagint canon of the Bible? 39 books, plus several additional widely accepted books known as the Deuterocanonical or Apocrypha, including Tobit, Judith, Wisdom, Solomon, Sirach, Baruch, 1st and 2nd Maccabees, additions to Daniel and to Esther. So we see that in addition to the 39 books that the Protestants have, the Septuagint, which was widely used at the time of the apostles, also included Tobit, Judith, Wisdom of Solomon, Sirach, Baruch, 1st and 2nd Maccabees, and extra parts in Daniel and Esther. So guess what? Once again, you were made to look like a liar. You don't even know what was actually in the original Jewish canon. You might be talking about the canon developed in the Council of Jamnia. But here's an interesting fact for you. All Bibles, all of them, wait a minute, go back to this information. This is a very interesting information. Okay. This person has a very important question. Why not keep Enoch when it is quoted by Jude? It's a very good, interesting question, but Enoch was not part of that Septuagint. The Catholic Church, when they made the part of the canon, they did not just decide to include any random books, because there was a lot of crazy ideas going on. Jude used it because even a broken clock is correct twice a day, so the saying goes. But the book of Enoch was never part of the Septuagint. Look to know what books were originally there. Look at the Septuagint. Since Enoch was not in the Septuagint, it was not included. What they did, they included every single book that was part of the Septuagint. That's what happened. Now, we go back to what you were mentioning about there not being a Catholic and Protestant divide. So there was only the Catholic Bible, which proves that the original Bible had 73 books. Simple as that. Now, let me go on and ask again, when did the Protestants take the deuterocanonical books out? Okay. Martin Luther started by moving them to a different portion, but then it was officially removed in the 1820s. So you see here, it gave us a history of how they were slowly being removed. And they talk about final removal. So there was a process in which a Protestant cults were deciding how they were going to select the books they were going to eliminate. Snooze 927, you are wrong. The point I just made is that the Deuterocanonicals were fully accepted. Every member of the early church accepted the Deuterocanonicals completely because those were the books that were recognized by Jesus and by the apostles in his day. This will talk about the Deuterocanonicals not fully accepted in the church and being solidified afterwards. That's a Protestant lie. That is a lie developed by the Protestants as an excuse to justify the taking parts out of the Bible. Simple as that. Those books have always been, since the first formation of the canon in in the year 382, the books of the Septuagint, including all the Deuterocanonicals, were indeed accepted. The ones that were not universally accepted, as I already pointed out, were 7 books in the New Testament: Revelations, 2nd and 3rd John, 2nd Peter, Hebrews, James, Jude. Those were the books that were not universally accepted, but the Deuterocanonicals of the Old Testament were. This is recorded history. That is false. You're telling me that the church fathers questioned it. Prove it to me. Prove it to me. Tell me which father and in which document. Snooze 1927 is telling me he's not a Protestant. Well, by him trying to argue against a full admission of the Deuterocanonicals, he's proving that he is a Protestant. So don't try and fool us. And no, it is not history. It is false. You are giving us misinformation. Look at what Eusebius of Caesarea writes about the formation of the early canon, and you will see that he points out that the Deuterocanonicals were fully and completely accepted by the early church. So Snooze 1927, I suggest you go back. You don't know my religion? Well, I'm sorry, but if it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it is a duck. If you speak like a Protestant, odds are you are a Protestant. Only the Protestants question the Deuterocanonicals. Nobody else. Now, let's see what else this guy wrote in reference to it. Let's see. I'm having a little technical issue. Bear with me. We go on, and then he says, the Catholic Church didn't formally lock those additional books in the scripture until Council of Trent, 1546, as a response to the Reformation. False. And how do we know that this is a Protestant lie? Because we go back to the canon of the Vulgate. In the Synod of Rome of 382, the canon was formed. The Council of Hippo, which he pointed out, ratified the canon developed in 382. You know what ratify means? It means to lock in, to make official. So the Big Council of Hippo that this guy cited proves that yes, the official canon was fully locked in and well established hundreds of years before the Council of Trent. The Catholic canon, the canon of the Bible, was established in the Council of Rome of 382, ratified in Hippo, and then we get the Decretum Gelasianus, which further ratified. So now we have the official canon ratified 3 times before the 5th century even got going. Then this very same canon was then handed over to Jerome, who then translated from Greek and Hebrew to Latin. So each and every book that was already ratified and locked in was locked in before the Vulgate was established. Let's talk about the Catholic Church formally locking those books after 1546. It's a lie. It's a lie once again because the Protestant Church needs to justify why, if they believe sola scriptura, they need to justify and defend the serious satanic mistake done by the so-called Bible societies when they decided to remove these books. So there was, some original 72 books, as stated earlier. It was not 72. It has always been 73 until you Protestants decided to remove them. Long established 66 books canon recognized early and consistently, and later debates where some groups chose to include additional writings. I just proved it wrong. You just pointed the Vulgate. The first Bible to be translated was the Vulgate. Now, let's see. If I have an original document, and then I have another copy of that document, which is different, obviously the one who came later is the one that has been changed. Now, if the first Bible, the Latin Vulgate, had 73 books, that means the original Bible originally and has always had 73 books. But it was not till 1823 when these 7 books were making the Protestants look foolish because the Protestant doctrine does not hold up to the Bible. Then they decided to take books out that disproved and demonstrated how the Catholic Church is right. Protestant pastors couldn't have that. So they removed those 7 books. And they made up this fake narrative about, it's always been 66 books. No. The first one, the first Bible, the Vulgate, let's see. Don't just take my word for it. Let's go ahead and ask Google how many books did it have. Don't take my word for it. Let's see. Let's ask and find out. How many books did the Vulgate have? 76 books. Well, it's really 73, but the reason why it says 76 is because there was also the Song of the Three Youths, which was incorporated to the book of Daniel. There's a song of Susanna, which was incorporated to the book of Daniel. There was second Esdras, which was incorporated to Nehemiah's. That's why it says 46. but we see it is not 66. It is not 66. When did the Bible start having 66 books? The Bible did not start with 66 books. It's a specific they're comprised of 39 Old and 27 New Testament books. It's a specific Protestant standard established later. Early brother collections included the Catholic with 73 books and the Orthodox with 81 books. So we go back and we look at the history of these things, and we find that it is actually the other way around. The earlier Bible actually had 73, and it is not till after the 16th century when the Protestant church decided to eliminate 7 books. It was not 7 books added by the Catholic Church in response to the Reformation. It is 7 books taken out by the Reformation in response to the fact that those 7 books proved Catholic doctrine far superior to Protestant doctrine. Sir, if you do not know your history, stop trying to pretend that you know. Now, I'm going to have to just finish this comment here. And then, let's see. I'm going to have to finish commenting on what this guy is saying. Then I'm going to have to close it because it is getting late. He continues telling us, a long established 66 book canon recognized early and consistently. I proved you wrong. Oh, yeah. Let's look at this again. Let's look at this. Let's ask Google another question and find out. How many books did the Synod of Rome in 382 recognize? 73 books. The Synod of Rome in 382 recognized 73 books. Once again, sir, you have been made out to be the liar. We see the fact that it's the other way around. In 382, it was the Synod of Rome accepted 73 books. And then it's not till after the 1800s when the Protestant church decided to take books out. So once again, the Protestant narrative saying that there was a lot of that there was excuse me, I don't know what happened here, but I don't know what happened here. This is probably telling me I'm going too far. Let's see. Oh, Spruce is telling me that it's not canon by not considered canon by Athanasius. Okay, tell me what writing by. Actually, you are wrong right there, because Athanasius. If you know anything about Athanasius was a very close and devout follower of the Pope. So if the Pope Damasus recognized 73, Athanasius, as a devout follower of the Pope, would have also recognized 73. You sent the link. I have not seen it. You don't want me to call you a Protestant? Stop acting like one. I call things as I see it. And if I see that you're acting like a Protestant, I will call it. I will call you on it. If you're really agnostic, you will not be defending the fake Protestant narrative. Now, let's see, where was I? Oh, yeah. I was going, not a Christian. Okay, not a Christian, fine. But so then why are you defending the Protestant narrative? That's my only question for you. You have Protestant with problems with the Protestant too? You know what? Maybe it would be a good idea for you and me to meet once. Maybe it would be a good idea for you and me to meet sometime and discuss about these issues. Not a bad idea. All right, let's continue with what I was about to point out because it is getting late and I do need to finish this out. Where were we? Yeah, nope. Well, I lost train of thought where I was looking at that. I wonder if I do this. Well, in summary, we have seen this is popping up again. Let me see something here. Now, I'm just going to stop it here for summary. Okay, so I'm going to close it off here and remind you, like always, today, just like always, long live Christ the King!